Hi, I'm Kevin Proto with Locals Supporting Locals for another segment of the Heartbeat of the Okanagan. And we're doing a follow-up to a rally that took place. What was the first rally that we had here in regards to Skaha development here? Yeah, just last week, and it's August 4th now, and there's another rally taking place in front of City Hall because there just has to, due process is not being followed here. The crowd is demanding to know more information on this development. And so I'm here with Jake Kimberley. He's a concerned citizen as well, and also was former mayor here in Penticton. So if you could tell the folks, like, what are your concerns? You know, like, they got us pitted against each other. It's either you're for the water slides or you're and against the kids, or you're not. You know, so.
Well, mainly the thing is that the due process is not being followed. You know, the fact that this project was underway for some odd years, and all of a sudden it comes to the surface and people suddenly realize what is going on with the lease. So the truth of the matter is, if you do things right, you allow the people to speak, and then you take it out there to the community, and that's not happened here. And now it's been taken out to the community. Of course, everybody's now protesting because they realized how it's going to impact that park.
Yeah, well,
private investment.
Yeah, and I mean, they've used the term disposition here, which I guess in Black's law here.
Yeah, well, Section 27 of the municipal charter requires any disposition of a park has to go to referendum.
Okay.
Yeah. Any sale or transfer of lands for public use has to go to referendum. The questionable thing is here, does a lease, a 30-year plus lease, require referendum on disposition of the use of that land? In my opinion, I think it does.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think it does. And I think
30 years, well, it's almost 40 years.
There's a court case to that effect, and that it certainly should be looked at by City Hall to see where they're at legally. And the fact is that disposition, of course, means that you deny the public access to that property which they purchased under taxation.
Yes.
You know, so that's the issue. And it's a very strong argument, but what the council should have done is say, okay, here's the proposal, here's what they want to do, we're going to go and take it to referendum as to whether you want this. The people speak, democracy is affected, council just take that decision to the whoever, certainly to the offer for development, and say, here's the decision of the general public. It's as easy as that.
Yeah.
And $30,000. But the other thing is, of course, it's divided the community.
Yes, that it has.
I hate that. I ran my last campaign on that issue because there was an issue of the ball diamonds up Munson Mountain, which I have opposed, strongly opposed, and said that's not right. And that was divided into the community. We had posters and banners and everything all over the city saying we should allow it. I said no, we can't allow it. And I won that campaign on that argument alone.
Okay.
So basically we're in the same scenarios here. And the council's got to listen to the people.
Yes.
Kevin Pro too.
And he said they cannot do that without this following this.
We are not against water slides. We are against taking a public park and leasing it to a private corporation without consult to the residents. Our city council has agreed to sign an agreement with Trio
I know that.
to give them control of part of the Skaha Lake Park. They have done this without public input. We demand a referendum. Council has to allow residents of the city and tourists to decide the fate of the Skaha Park.
That's right.
Can you hear me now? We have guest speakers who will explain the importance of saving Skaha Park. We need to save valuable green space. This park was built on legacy funds and service clubs in this city. It is not for sale or lease. Am I coming in loud and clear? If you haven't signed the petition demanding a referendum, we have a table on the right and a table on the left, and there's one at the back.
I'll take your personal.
They're for
Thank you.
tourists, people that live close to Penticton, and our residents. Now, one thing I gotta tell you is there is no open mic, okay? We have designated speakers. And if you're planning on going into the council meeting, please be respectful.
Yes. Yes. Yes, there's no way I can call him his worship.
Our first speaker is Kimberley. Jake was mayor in Penticton for 3 terms, from 1990 to 96, and again in 2005 to 2008. During his first 2 terms as mayor, much of council's attention was directed towards handling the influx of new residents in the city, while also preserving the character of our city. Special interest in preserving and upgrading the city's waterfront area continued to be on his 2nd term. Since still a Penticton resident, he continues to be active in the community. Jake will speak to the legislation for public process and the public hearing on this matter that was held on June 29th.
And you don't have to call him his worship.
Good evening, everybody.
Jake for mayor.
It took 50 years to assemble the land for Skaha Park. 50 years of buying private properties to assemble enough land there to have that park at the size it is now. This lease is almost as long as that 50 years. Because they've got 30 years plus 2 5-year extensions if they give it to these developers. Now, I'm not against developers, as I said that before, but the process to this lease is something that really needs to be examined under the legislation and public process. by two of the probably best administrators that I've ever known in the province of British Columbia. They had university degrees in administration of municipal city hall. They gave me guidance, they gave me direction in what I was required to do as mayor. And what they gave me was a very strict instruction of public process regarding land use. Simply because if you make a mistake along the way, you could see the city getting charged and fined a very big fine. The public process requires, let's take this one for example. Now, if Trio came to the city council and said, look, we want to do this, we want to put a water slide in the park. Council's responsibility at that time would be to refer it to staff. Staff would look at the bylaws, the legislation, the requirements for the property to be leased, how much per square meter, etc., etc. Council should not meet with that developer until it comes to a public hearing. If that process was not followed, then this process is in doubt. If it was not followed. But it's very uncomfortable for me when I went to the public hearing on the 29th to hear 3.5 hours of presentation by the public, such as yourselves, and to hear the decision made 30 minutes without debate. That's difficult. But let's get into the issue of lease. Under Section 27 of the Municipal Charter, it requires any disposition of public land or transfer of public land. In other words, if you want to transfer your property for their property, you have to go with the consent of the electorate. Now, the question is with the lease. Does the lease require a disposition of land? Does it mean that it's a disposition of land?
Yes.
Okay?
For 30 years?
That's exactly it. If the land is leased for 30 years, then it's an argument to say that the land is being disposed of for public use. Okay? The courts in Ontario have ruled on that. The courts in Ontario, I don't have the details of it, but the courts heard that argument and said, no, that lease means that public access is being denied to land purchased by the public. To suggest in the public hearing that I attended, and many of you probably did, the developer suggested that they would still allow public access. I disagree with that. I disagree with that simply because they're going to make a $4 million investment in there and they're not going to have public crawling all over it while they're not paying their fee or fine and charge. Case in point, and it's been argued and presented in the paper that local landing is the same. Local landing is leased by the city for the use of that property. But go over it. What is there? They got a big investment surrounded by a concrete wall and a fence. It's no longer public land access.
That's right.
This is where you have to draw the line on this issue. Does the lease with a fenced property a disposition of public land? I say yes it is, and I believe that if I was chairing this session, referendum. And I'll tell you why I say referendum, because if I was in the chair, the one thing you as mayor have got to look at is the interest to develop and invest in your community. You start turning the other way without consideration, and you're no longer open for business, you're going to have a bad reputation. So if somebody comes to you with this kind of a proposal, okay, go to referendum.
Yes.
And that settles the issue. But I just want to say this in closing. You'll see my letter. Water slides are for young people and families that can afford them. Public parks are for old, young families for free. Thank you very much.
Our second speaker is Joan Moffat. Joan is a resident of Penticton for 40 years. She is a physiotherapist and educator. Joan is retired and living in Penticton, but remains very active in the community. Joan will speak on the needs of the public in this issue.
I'm very short, so I have to pull it down a little bit. I will load speaking down those words for which I brought the skills I pulled this together. However, politics is a new arena for me. So I come at this from the needs of the citizens. What do we need? Not just in the Oh, is that better? Yeah, I come from the view of what do we citizens need, and look at the things that have contributed to that. For example, in 2008, there was a review of parklands, and it was determined according to the size of Penticton that we are short about 114 acres of parklands overall. This is well worth remembering before we start getting rid of any. Over the last 40 to 100 years, the long-term policy here has been, as Gerry mentioned, to maintain and expand our parklands, especially Skaha Karr. Now, this is long-term policy that has existed through many councils. It's a very important point. I'll come to it again in a minute. The tourists come to our beaches. They come for our events or our ice cream parks or many other reasons. But the beaches are the primary attraction. And doing anything to lessen the land we have set aside for beaches is working against our tourist industry. Now let's go back for a moment to this long-term policy. When long-term policy is overturned, the assent of the citizens is required. The process is referendum. Occasionally we hear that the referendum costs money. Well, the referendum wouldn't be the proper procedure here in the first place. It is not costing us any more. It will cost us a tremendous amount more if we don't do this. The referendum assures us that council is staying within procedure, and if it goes against the park, we will accept it. We won't like it, but we will accept it. On the other hand, it assures us too that the council has been fair and square and has been respectful of what we want and has set forward. We need this. What we need is, the thing with the referendum is that the citizens vote, not the council votes. And over parklands, over long-term policy, this is the way it should be. We need to be able to trust our council's judgment. For that, we need tight procedure. We haven't got it, and we don't have the trust in it. The rules and duties of council are well written out over a multitude of newspapers, including the limits of their powers, and the procedures, some of which include referendum, but all of the procedures they use are the safeguards that keep them within their powers and keep them respecting and representing us. When we start moving procedures around, we've lost that. The amount of procedures that have been moved around this time, with missed here regarding the water side, with negating the history, with forgetting the 114-acre shortage, which ignored the tourists love for the park, voting half an hour after the forum on the 29th, does not indicate to us that we have had a fair share of it. The actions of this council scare me. We citizens need assurance that our council is here and that we can trust them. There have been a lot of assumptions wrapped around what's happening here. Assumptions that this room here is negligible, assumptions that will go away. assumption that 80% of that park will be adequate 100 years into the future, assumptions that the slide from park use to commercial use won't be noticed, assumptions that because the water slide is the same procedure as in a lease as a food stall won't be overrun. The assumption that we don't want to change. The assumption is perhaps that after 39 years of commercial use, we will have an open choice of recovering this land. This will not be true. The biggest precedent it will set at that time is that it has now had 39 years of commercial use, and that is quite likely to override a whole lot of other things. So don't fall for that. What we need is trust in our council to stick to due diligence, to make no assumptions. For a moment, to speak of the lease, this park is being leased out like the food stalls. However, the food stalls feed the people using our beaches. They support the park use. The water slides oppose and replace the park use just because they are called park and involve water doesn't make them complementary or related. They could be anywhere. Whereas the food stall in the middle of Penticton does not service Skaha Park. And we need to have a look at that. One minute. One way or another, when it's still concrete to structural changes, this is not lease. This is disposal. This is permanent. Business is an important foundation to most aspects of all of our lives. However, in many aspects of our life, it is not the dominant issue. Rather, it's the foundation that the dominant issue is considered around. We need business to stop being put ahead of health, of the long run, of traditional policy, of representing us, of legal civic procedure, of responsibility to represent us. We need the citizens need business to be put in its proper place. The solution to all these things is to have a referendum. With the referendum, we are not looking at calling names, pointing the states, or dealing with egos. What we are looking is getting us back on track with our council, which is where we want to be and where they need us to be.
He's a retired physician for internal medicine here in Penticton, well respected, and he would like to speak to what's going to be happening to Skaha Park.
I agree with Jamie. I have another 30 seconds. I'm coming.
30 seconds. I've lived in this city for 50 years. This is the biggest rally I've seen in City Hall. As mayor and chair of the council, the mayor has an option that I'm going to present to you. You know that just recently they discovered that the property next to the convention center is a dedicated park. That's the ball diamond. That must go to the consent of the electorate to do any changes on that land. Okay? My advice to the mayor and this council is to say, okay, you want the MX Park, you want the convention center land, you want Skaha Park. Throw us 3 questions on a referendum, let's get it over with.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will keep it short. With the rain coming, I'm just going to tell you to start off with something about healthcare costs.
A little closer, Gerry.
Okay, let me start again. I'm going to tell you something about healthcare costs, and you'll see why. The total direct and indirect cost of chronic disease in Canada in 2004 was $93 million per year. That's 10 years ago. It's now well over $100 billion. Most of this chronic disease is preventable. It's hard to get your head around such a big number, but it's real. It's about $285 per person for every man, woman, and child in this country. The data is well documented. It takes a huge toll on our economy. The list of diseases involved is long, but near the top are cancers, diabetes, and mental illness. We in Penticton bear our share of this burden through healthcare costs, social costs, and lost productivity costs. It's a huge economic issue with major impact on our standard of living. Why am I telling you this? Because the solution is not more doctors and drugs. It's not conventional preventative medicine. It lies with strategies to promote healthy living. I'm here to tell you that an urban park is one of the best tools we have to promote and support healthy living. A peaceful, natural place for restorative relaxation, soft recreation, accessible by all without charge. Evidence of the health benefits of urban parks is strong and growing, including blood pressure control, reduced obesity, improved stress and depression scores, improved functioning of kids with ADHD, even improved immunity. Some very recent evidence shows that chemicals, phytoncides they're called, released into the air by trees, especially evergreens, are powerful enhancers of our immune systems. So a good urban park touches on all of our human needs for wellness, physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual. Not many recipes for health can make that claim. And the core of this benefit is a sense of natural space. Any added amenities must be compatible with this and complement the overall ambience of peace and relaxation, whether they be basketball hoops, which we have, volleyball nets, also we have, or playgrounds. But maintaining the natural ambience is crucial. Our own Skaha Lake Park fits this description to a T. It is an urban gem and model for other communities. No enhancement is needed. Kudos to our city park department for creating and maintaining it so well. Contrast the urban park with another kind of park, the amusement park. These are usually privately owned, for-profit, and charge an entry fee. They have expensive built structures based on a theme, such as bungee cord jumping, or adventure, or yes, water slides. They serve customers who can afford to pay. Could Penticton use a water slide? Absolutely. Could be a lot of fun for our kids whose parents can afford it. Maybe attract some more tourists and create a few more low-paying jobs for 3 months of the year. But it belongs in a privately owned and operated amusement park, not in Skaha Lake Park. Overwhelming existing ambience, shatter the peaceful natural setting that is essential to its healing properties, and defeat the health benefits this park bestows on our community. We must stop thinking of our parks as a frivolous indulgence, wasting valuable land just waiting for development. Parks have their own intrinsic value to community health and to our economy. In fact, they are priceless. Wise urban planners have known this for centuries. We struggle to bring urban parkland. It needs to be protected, and we need mayor and council to understand that. So to conclude, our public parkland belongs to all the people. We, the ratepayers, are the owners of this land. We are not customers. Almost 20% of Skaha Lake Park for commercial development by circumventing the democratic process. This must stop now. Public parliament must not be disposed of in any way without consent from the electorate. Thank you.
Donoghue. She has resided in Penticton for 26 years and has been the City of Penticton employee for 15 years. She will speak about the history of Skaha Park and the current lack of democracy.
Hello everybody, can you hear me? Okay, now, because it's raining, I'm cutting my speech down to about a minute and a half, okay? Because a lot of what I was going to say has been said. So, some interesting information from the archives. Over 104 years ago, September 1911, Council of Day passed a bylaw to purchase land for Parks and Rec. Guess what? The bylaw required the assent of the electorate. That's 104 years ago. In 1959, Council wanted to spend $17,000 on the arena. Guess what? Approval of the taxpayers was required for leasing any city or public land for more than a year. Not 40 years, 1 year. And guess what? Council presented the required bylaw to a referendum, and they had a referendum. March 1992, City wanted to buy more parkland at Skaha, and guess what? They were required to consent to the electorate, and that's what we're demanding. I say to you this, that surely the same principle applies when the current Mayor and Council wanted to dispose of that same public land for 40 years, not 1 year, and they don't seem to need the assent of the electorate. I say they do need the assent of all of us. So I'll say one quick thing about the purpose of the municipality, which is all of us, right? And this is the community charter, providing for good government of its community, providing for services, laws and other matters for community benefit, providing for stewardship of the public assets, which includes Skaha Park, fostering the economic, social and environmental well-being of its community. Now one last thing, I don't think the word democracy has changed. I checked my Oxford dictionary this morning. It still means consensus, it still means fairness, and it still means a system of government by the whole population. We want we don't want to get it that way, okay? Our last speaker is Gerry Denton. Gerry was born and raised in Penticton and his father of 4. He's a former manager of Apex Mountain Resort and worked in real estate sales for 30 years. He was also on the Penticton City Council for 2 terms. Gerry will take a poll of the crowd and speak to the importance of continuing public pressure and summarize the options of how we get from here to a referendum on a lease.
Thank you all very much for coming. I had toyed over what I wanted to say, and after listening to all the others, I realized that they said most of it. But I do want to take a poll before we get rained out. I hope that doesn't happen. But I have to say one thing. You heard the thunder a minute ago. On June 29th, there was a huge thunderstorm in Crack. And when Kimberley got up in front of council to do her meaningless input, he said, that thunder is the former mayors that are angry. I'm not saying the thunder is just me. I want to take a quick poll. Please put up your hands if you came to this rally expressly to show your support for Save Penticton Skaha Park. Thank you. Please, if you came to this rally expressly to endorse the opposition or to endorse the opposition against putting water slides in Skaha Park. I'm asking if you come to endorse the opposition to putting water slides. Okay, the last question is, I'd like to ask if anybody is here tonight that came to support the Lease to Trio group. I thought so. But remember the press after the last time. This decision, if not legislatively, legally wrong, is morally wrong. I would like just to acknowledge the frustration that you must have all felt. Those of you that have written letters, called your councillors, talked to your neighbors, done all those things that you would think would make a difference, and no one seems to be listening. I think you're going to find that this will go to a referendum. I'm afraid of two things. I don't know which I'm afraid of more. I believe that either the current council is aware of the legislative requirement to seek the approval of the public, or I'm more afraid that they don't know. We are convinced as a group of volunteers that this is definitely an issue that requires public consent. I'm going to read you a definition under Section 29 of the Interpretation Act, RSVC 1996, etc. Dispose means to translate by any method includes assign, give, sell, grant, charge, convey, bequeath, devise, lease. Lease means sell means dispose, and dispose means we need the assent of the electorate. If the city council, and that's why I urge you to keep up your support. I was hoping for more people, but people just don't have that much time to vote on anything. It's getting wet. Keep up your support, keep signing the petitions, new names to the editor. We have three options to get to a referendum. One, the city council will voluntarily change their direction and either drop the water slides in front of the lease or grant the referendum. Two, if they won't listen to that and change their direction, then the municipality of British Columbia, the respective municipalities could come forward and enforce that upon the council, because I believe that it's a disposal plan and it has to have consent. If that doesn't work, then there's a third option, and that's going to a lawyer and have to retain a experienced municipal lawyer. That takes a lot of time at the last stage and costs a lot of money. I found a lot of things. There's 12 letters to the editors today. We're all written. You're not uninformed. You're not all old. You're not afraid of change. We are well informed, and we don't want this on the one side of our heart. I have a picture of me, David Gerry referred in the editorial today. It's a letter to the editor. It's a plaque on the base of a tree. One of the trees that is going to be ultimately destroyed. And it was placed at the base of that tree by the family of a lady. Okay, this is a picture side. This is 102 years old. This tree is planted in her memory. And it says, may this tree live